in the desolate reaches of the English countryside, where the mist clung to the earth like a shroud and the moon cast its pale gaze upon the land, there stood a manor that time had long forgotten. Its name, whispered in hushed tones by those who dared speak of it, was Blackwood Manor, a place steeped in legend and shrouded in mystery. The manor, with its crumbling stone walls and ivy-choked facade, seemed to emerge from the very depths of the earth like a specter summoned from the darkest recesses of the human psyche. Its windows, like vacant eyes, stared out into the night with a silent, mournful gaze, as though beholding the countless tragedies that had unfolded within its walls. Legend held that Blackwood Manor was cursed by the blood of those who had perished within its shadowed halls. Tales spoke of a family torn asunder by madness and despair, their spirits bound to the manor for all eternity, condemned to wander its corridors in search of solace that would never come. And yet, despite the warnings of the villagers who whispered of the manor's cursed legacy, there were those who dared to venture into its depths, driven by a morbid curiosity that defied reason and logic. Among these intrepid souls was a young scholar by the name of Jonathan Wellesley, whose thirst for knowledge knew no bounds. Jonathan had heard the tales of Blackwood Manor since childhood, stories whispered in the dead of night by the flickering light of the hearth. And now, as a grown man with a mind sharpened by years of study, he felt compelled to uncover the truth behind the legends that had haunted his dreams for so long. With a lantern in hand and a heart filled with trepidation, Jonathan set out into the night, his footsteps echoing against the cobblestone path that led to the manor's foreboding gates. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decay, and a chill wind whispered through the skeletal branches of the surrounding forest, carrying with it the echoes of forgotten sorrows. As Jonathan approached the gates of Blackwood Manor, he felt a shiver run down his spine, a primal instinct warning him of the dangers that lay ahead. But he pressed on, driven by a curiosity that bordered on obsession, his lantern casting flickering shadows upon the overgrown path that led to the manor's entrance. With a creak of rusted hinges, the gates swung open, revealing a path that disappeared into the darkness like a serpent vanishing into the depths of the earth. Jonathan hesitated for a moment, his resolve wavering in the face of the unknown, but then he stepped forward, crossing the threshold into the realm of the damned. The manor loomed before him, its towering silhouette silhouetted against the backdrop of the moonlit sky. The windows were like empty eyes, watching his every move with a silent malevolence that sent a shiver down his spine. With each step he took, Jonathan felt the weight of centuries pressing down upon him, as though the very air he breathed was heavy with the sorrow of the countless souls who had perished within those walls. And yet, despite the overwhelming sense of foreboding that hung in the air, he pressed on, driven by a determination that bordered on madness. As he crossed the threshold into the manor's darkened interior, Jonathan was met with a scene of utter desolation. The once grand foyer lay in ruins, its marble floors cracked and stained with the passage of time, its walls adorned with faded tapestries that depicted scenes of a bygone era. But it was not the decay of the manor that chilled Jonathan to the bone. It was the sense of something lurking in the shadows, something ancient and malevolent that watched his every move with a hunger that defied comprehension. With his lantern held aloft, Jonathan ventured deeper into the heart of the manor, his footsteps echoing against the cold stone walls like the tolling of funeral bells. And with each passing moment, the darkness seemed to close in around him, swallowing him whole in its suffocating embrace. At last, he came upon a chamber bathed in the sickly glow of moonlight, its entrance shrouded by a tattered curtain of cobwebs. With a sense of trepidation that threatened to overwhelm him, Jonathan pushed aside the veil, revealing a sight that would haunt his nightmares for eternity. Within the chamber, illuminated by the ghostly light of the moon, lay a coffin of ebony wood, a coffin that seemed to pulsate with a life of its own, as though the very essence of death resided within its depths. With trembling hands, Jonathan approached the coffin, his heart pounding with a rhythm that mirrored the tolling of funeral bells. And as he reached out to touch its cold, smooth surface, he felt a presence stir within, a presence that sent a chill down his spine and turned his blood to ice. With a sound like the rustling of dry leaves, the lid of the coffin began to creak open, revealing a sight that would haunt Jonathan until the end of his days. For within the depths of the coffin lay a figure clad in the tattered remnants of a funeral shroud, its eyes two hollow sockets that stared out into the abyss with a hunger that chilled the soul. And then, with a voice like the wailing of the damned, the figure spoke, a single word that echoed through the chamber like a death knell. "Leave," it whispered, its voice a mere whisper on the wind, yet filled with a power that shook Jonathan to his very core. "Leave this place, lest you become ensnared in the web of darkness that binds us to this cursed realm." With a cry of terror, Jonathan fled from the chamber, his mind reeling from the horrors he had witnessed. And as he stumbled into the cold embrace of the moonlit night, he knew that he would never escape the haunting specter of Blackwood Manor, forever condemned to wander the earth as a lost soul, ensnared by the chains of his own mortality. And thus ends the tale of Blackwood Manor, where the echoes of the past linger in the shadows, and the whispers of the dead haunt the dreams of the living. Dare you tread upon its hallowed ground, lest you too become ensnared by the dark embrace of eternal torment?